my assumption is that each and every one of you have someone in your life that you've been carrying a resentment towards. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's yourself. Maybe it's your body. Here's a prayer I offer you. And if you really want to go big and surrender fully, get on your knees. I am willing to see this differently. I am willing to forgive. That mere willingness, I'm willing to see this differently, I'm willing to forgive, will set you in motion. It will set the wheels in motion. It will set you up for the next right action. It will open doors that you didn't even know were available to you. It will give you inspired ideas to pick up the phone when you never thought you could. And it will give you the power to show up for circumstances that are far beyond your wildest imagination. So just open your heart today, just with that moment of desire, that commitment for that deep desire for forgiveness. Because the thing is that we think that we want to hold that resentment because it's going to protect us, or we would rather be right. But my question for you guys is, would you rather be right or happy? Today I want to talk about how we can get more deeply connected to our relationship to spirit. 2 years ago, I had a nice little spiritual kick in the butt. I was on my book tour for my third book, and I was out traveling all over different countries, putting the book out into the world, going from airplane to airplane, just really hustling, really using my own strength, really controlling the outcome of certain situations, trying to make things happen, putting myself out into the world in a way where I was really trying to be manipulative, control, and push and force. And living with that energy of my own forceful action, I started to feel very depleted, very exhausted. I was going from city to city, just feeling like I was losing my power, one city at a time. I felt also quite disconnected to my spiritual practice because at this point in time, because I was so out there and so focused on physical sight rather than spiritual sight, I was really losing that connection. I was losing that connection in my judgmental thoughts, in the ways that I was perceiving myself in the world, in the ways that I was comparing myself to others. I had lost my connection because I was in this really unforgiving state at that time. I was going through some personal things with my father at the time, and I was very judgmental of him, judgmental of some of the choices he was making, judgmental of the behaviors that I had seen happen and not really feeling connected and feeling very unforgiving. So judgment, unforgiving behavior, feelings of comparing, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of being unlovable, all completely catapulted me out of that connection to my spiritual relationship. I remember giving a talk, and I got up on the stage and I gave a talk, and it was kind of like I was phoning it in. I was just like, I was doing the best I could, just bring it home. And even though I met all my beats on that book stop, and I met all the beats of that talk, I didn't feel that connection that I longed for. I didn't feel that movement within me, and I felt like I was just going through the motions. I remember walking off that stage and just thinking, I'm hitting bottom. This isn't working. I am completely disconnected from the universe. I'm completely out of alignment with what I think is true, and I'm out there preaching about miracles and preaching about manifesting and telling people how to be happier, and I'm miserable. I got on the airplane to fly from London to Toronto for my next stop. And I sat down in the airplane, and the second I got settled in my seat and had my little glass of water next to me, I said a prayer. I said, God, I am out of alignment right now. I feel deeply disconnected from my truth, from my relationship to the universe. And I need a gentle reminder that I am being guided. Show me once again a little gift. Just give me a gift. Just give me a little moment of remembrance. That's all I need. And as soon as I said that prayer, I started to feel a sense of relief, because prayer truly is the medium for miracles. The moment we say a prayer, we can realign back into that energy of interconnectedness. A prayer can take us away from that feeling of disconnect and chaos, and it can immediately align us back into our truth. Here I am now on the airplane flying to Toronto, breathing a little bit more easily and expecting the universe to show me an awesome sign that I am connected. I arrive in Toronto and I get backstage, and it's much like this. I was the second to last speaker at a Hay House event. And all of the other speakers had shuffled out, and the green room was quiet. There wasn't a single person in the green room. There was just leftover gluten-free cookies and green juices. And I sat down, and I grounded myself in my meditation. It was about 15 minutes before I got onto the stage. And I started to just feel my feet get grounded into the ground and feel my body start to tingle and feel my extremities start to feel that little heat. I started to lock right back into that home zone, right back into that centered place. And in my meditation, all of a sudden, I started to see myself on the stage, a stage much like this, a very, very large stage. And I could see myself in this little frame that I am in with this huge stage, and I started to experience this vision of these massive 50-foot angel wings coming off of my shoulders. And I felt these wings so clearly as if they were mine. And those wings were just pouring off into the ushered sides of the stage, into the audience, and I could see that magnetic, magnificent image in my mind's eye. And most importantly, I could feel that deep connection of what that meant. That meant that I was back in. I had locked back into my connection to the universe. I stepped out onto that stage, and the wings were there. The wings were there. I felt that magnitude. I felt that presence. I felt that energy. I felt the relationship to the gorgeous audience, much like you. I felt that interconnectedness. I felt that spirit rise through me. I felt that effortlessness, that joy, that connection that I had lost for so many months prior. I was back. The universe was gifting me with that remembrance of who I truly am. Miracles were natural, and I was back in the flow. My angel wings were on the stage. I stepped off the stage, and Nancy Levin comes running up to me. She's, oh my God, I got the coolest picture of you. And it's a photo of me, and my arms are out like this, and it's at 11:11 on the clock. I was like, I know, Nancy. The angels were with me. I got off the stage, I went backstage, I sat down with some of my friends. There was 2 of my friends backstage, these beautiful Canadian people that I'm friendly with, and they'd made me these little raw burritos to have as a snack before I got back on the plane. And my girlfriend runs in, she goes, Gabby, oh my God, it was as if you had angel wings. And I looked at her and I said, Julie, I did. So we sat down and we had a little snack before I got back on the plane. It was me, Julie, and her husband. And there was nothing on the table. It was just this vegan raw burrito that I was finishing very quickly, and nothing else on the stage. And she starts to clean up my plate for me, and I start to gather my things, and Julie's husband, out of nowhere, picks up this little charm off of the table, and he says, I don't know why, Gabby, but I think this is yours. And he hands me this little charm, and it's an angel wing that said, believe. And I looked at him and I said, that is mine. That's my gift from the universe. Thank you. I threw it in my handbag. It's been in my wallet ever since. That moment in time was a gentle reminder of how I can come back home. How quickly, how easily, through the intention of choosing again, the intention of just tuning back in, the intention of surrendering my will, surrendering my needs, and remembering that the secret to prayer is to stop praying for what I think I need and start praying for the highest good. Right back in, locked into that experience, the universe supported me, the universe had my back. I felt that connection, and it continued on, and it stayed intimate, and it continued to stay with me up until this day. I will never let myself lose that connection like I did that day. And I started to experience all of this great, beautiful presence and gifts and flow and synchronicity as I started to make that commitment to never get out of alignment again. I started to really own the truth, which is that miracles are natural. And when they're not occurring, something has gone wrong. A gorgeous message from A Course in Miracles. Miracles are natural, and when they're not occurring, something has gone wrong. So what had gone wrong? What had taken me out so far? What had disconnected me so deeply? Well, I had been in that comparing and judgment of myself, comparing myself to other authors and other book tours, comparing myself to other people, other speakers on the stage, the judgment of myself for being out of alignment with my spiritual practice. As I was out in the world giving this beautiful message, I was not in alignment with it. And so anyone have the experience of judging your spiritual practice? And it's a cycle. Judgment is a vicious cycle. It's the cycle of judging yourself, and then when you start to judge yourself, you start to judge others because you don't want to feel that judgment that you've placed upon yourself. So you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to project it onto my sister. And then when that starts to feel bad, and you start to feel guilty about yourself because you've been projecting your judgment, and you're a beautiful spiritual student, but now you're projecting your judgment onto other people, what do? You just project it back onto you. You know that vicious cycle. You know that, and that cycle continues and continues and continues, and we get stuck in it, and it completely disconnects us from that relationship to the universe, from that relationship to spirit. Judgment is one of the ego's chief weapons for keeping us out of alignment with our truth, with our true nature. The other piece, I was unforgiving. I was carrying that resentment towards my father. I was feeling that anger. I was separating myself from him. I was judging him. I was unwilling to let it go. I was holding on to a grievance for almost 5 years. And I was unwilling to let it go. I was talking about it a lot. So as we know in this room, what we talk about, we create. What we believe, we create. What we feel, we create. I was talking about it a lot. I was actually really truthfully just bitching about it a lot. And I was out there just constantly just in this place of separation, separating my experience from one of the people in my life who's probably one of the closest people I'll ever know. And in that resentment and unwilling to forgive, again, another chief weapon from keeping us in that connection to the universe. I was also in a lot of stress. I was in that very high stress state because I was relying on my own strength. A Course in Miracles says that the presence of fear is a sign that you are relying on your own strength. The presence of fear is a sign that you are relying on your own strength. In that experience of relying on my own strength, I was feeling that disconnect from the universe because I wasn't asking for help. So the moment that I got on that plane in Toronto and said, I need a miracle, I need some help, that was when I got locked back in. So I started to look really closely at all these different ways that I was out, because remembering that miracles are natural, and when they do not occur, something has gone wrong. And truly honoring myself for all that I had seen gone wrong, and truly honoring myself for that path. And so instead of judging my experience with more judgment, I decided to just live the path of choosing again moment to moment. And I want to share with you some of the tools that I did to stay connected to the universe. And these are tools that I didn't just do this past year, but I do them every day. And I use these tools because the truth is that our greatest source of power is our capacity to tune into the cosmos. It is our capacity to feel in sync with the universe. Our greatest power is not our credentials. Our greatest power is not how quickly we can be heard. Our greatest power is not how much money we earn. Our greatest power is not our relationship status. Our greatest power is our capacity to tune in to the experience of the connection to the universe, whatever that may be to us. Our greatest power is our capacity to tune in. So I made this my commitment every single day to go down the checklist of how can I tune in. Step one was always witnessing the judgment, witnessing how I'm out of alignment. Recently, I had a really fun experience where I saw myself in that deep judgment spiral. And I had to use my tools because even though these are my practices and we get up on these stages and we write books about these topics, we fall off every single day. So please just acknowledge that each and every one of us, no matter how committed we are to our spiritual path, we fall off every single day. So a few months ago, I was at a party up in the country. It was a summer party, and it was a hot summer night. And my husband and I were invited to this party, and we didn't know any of the guests except for the people that were hosting the party. And we show up and we walk into this tiny little room and there's all these people having cocktails. And there's this one woman who's just screaming and talking really loudly about how fabulous she is and just making sure that everyone knows who she is in the room and just talking at the top of her lungs to make sure we all liked her. And this really pissed me off. And so I'm looking at her and I'm just like, what is she all about? I start looking at this woman and I start eyeing her down and I start thinking to myself, this is not interesting to me. And so what do? I start talking louder. And I start making sure everybody knows who I am and how fabulous I am. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that I have more to say than this annoying woman in the corner. And so this is like an ongoing ego spiral for about 25 minutes. It was a complete nightmare. Me screaming, she's screaming. We're talking about all the things that we do. She's telling everybody how amazing she is. It was disgusting. Finally, my husband grabs my hand. He goes, it's time for dinner. We all walk out of the room and we go off to the dinner table. And there's this gorgeous dinner table set up. And I obviously was so grateful that they let us sit wherever we wanted. So I sat as far away from this woman as I possibly could. So she's on this end of the table, and I'm on the other end of the table. And I'm drinking my seltzer water. And I at this point in time, this is a few months ago, I was just coming up on 10 years of sober recovery. So I was, thank you. And so at cocktail parties, I have my seltzer. So I'm sitting there and I keep pouring my sparkling water and I'm sitting at the end of the table and I see this woman just staring me down. She's just looking at me so deeply with that piercing eye and I'm looking like, what the hell does she want? And she was just staring at me and I just continued to just look away. I was just not going to allow myself to get more and more annoyed by this woman. Finally, we get up from the dinner table, and everybody goes off to some of the adults went to go partake in marijuana or whatever else they were doing in the backyard. And I stayed inside with my seltzer water. And I'm sitting inside, and I think I'm checking my phone, and I'm drinking my seltzer, and all of a sudden, she starts walking up to me. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, what now? So here she comes, and she comes walking up to me, and she gets closer and closer, and I'm walking a little bit further and further back, and she comes up to me, and she looks me in the eye, and she says, are you sober? And I said, actually, yes. As a matter of fact, I'm coming up on 10 years of sobriety. And she looked at me and she said, I'm celebrating 7 this month. And in that moment, all boundaries dissolved. All that separation dissipated. In that moment, I was able to recognize myself in her. I could see that her ridiculous, bombastic behavior was my ridiculous, bombastic behavior. I could see that her recovering addict, the alcoholic part of her that needed to so desperately be seen, was my need to so desperately be seen. I could see that her pride and her joy and her enthusiasm about her recovery was mine. It was my pride and my joy and my enthusiasm about my very own recovery. And I could see myself in her. And that was a moment in time where I realized a very powerful tool for dissolving judgment, which is actually one of Yogi Bhajan's 5 sutras for the Aquarian age. Recognize the other person is you. Recognizing the other person is you reminds you that the things that you don't like about other people are merely a disowned part of your own shadow. And the things that you admire about someone are a reflection of your magnificence. They're a reflection of your light. And so I stayed connected to this woman. We exchanged emails on my 10-year anniversary. We're very friendly now. And I can see now very clearly that I no longer want to let myself get that far down that path of judgment, but as quickly as possible in that moment, recognize the other person is me. Since that time, I've been doing a very powerful practice that I want to make sure I give you today, because this will be something that you can take into your life immediately. The practice of choosing to see people in the light. Instead of letting myself go down the path of judgment, I started to decide to get ahead of it. So I started to choose to walk through my life, one day at a time, seeing the light in each person, choosing to see the light in each person I experience. On the street, in the back of the Uber, on the subway. Recognizing the light that I see in you is a reflection of my light. Walking through life, seeing that light in each and every person that I encounter. I want you to try this. It's a very powerful tool because what happens is that the antidote to judgment is to recognize the light. And you can dissolve all boundaries with love when you choose to see the light in other human beings. So go throughout your day, just maybe when you leave today, to really keep this Hay House mojo moving through your body when you leave here. Walk out of this room today and you get in that taxi and you just say, I see the light in you. When you walk into your homes this afternoon and you see your family members, look at each and every one of them and recognize the light in them, no matter how much they may be pissing you off. Choose to see the light. Leaning into the light, leaning into the light, leaning into the light. This is a very, very fun practice. It's a very joyful experience. Your day will feel more joyful. Your connections to others will feel more alive. Community is what we long for most. And that community is something that we can experience in a glance. We can experience a sense of connection and community just by walking through our day and stringing together those moments of light. The next step into really realigning with the energy of the universe was to be in a steadfast practice of forgiveness. And so up until 2 weeks ago, I was still carrying that resentment towards my father. But all the while, I was willing to forgive. When I hit that bottom right before I went to Toronto, I made that commitment not just to be in this story of I know I should forgive, but to start to say a prayer every single day. I'm ready and willing to forgive. That's the simplicity. I'm ready and I'm willing to forgive. I got on my knees every single day and I started to say that prayer for my father, and this went on for 2 years. In the midst of a lot of attack, in the midst of a lot of judgment, in the midst of a lot of fighting, I continued to say that prayer. About a month ago, I got on the phone with my dad, and I decided that it was time for me to tell him all the things that I was feeling and put everything on the table. That didn't work very well. So it's all out on the table. And at the end of the conversation, he says to me, you know, Gabby, I have felt very judged by you. And no matter how right I thought I was for my reasons for being angry, in that moment, I realized how right he was. And I said out loud, an involuntary voice came forward and said, I have been judging you. You're 100% right. I have been judging you. And I felt that. I could see my side of the street. I could own my part, that I had been in judgment. And it was piercing to hear my father say to me, I've been judged by you. And so after this very tumultuous conversation, he says, listen, I know we're still in this space, but it's Poppy's yahrzeit, which is the anniversary of my grandfather's death. It's Poppy's yahrzeit on the 31st. I really hope that you can come. And so I agreed to go to this Friday night temple ceremony it's a Friday night Shabbat service, and then they acknowledged my grandfather at the end of the service. I show up on Friday night, and we were having a birthday dinner. It was the day before my birthday, and we're having a birthday dinner for me before we go to temple. And the spirits are high. Things are feeling good. We're talking about my grandfather's favorite drink, which was a martini. My father is not interested in martinis, so my husband drank one for him. So we had martinis going around the table, and there's this light spirit in the air. And we go to temple, and the entire sermon that the rabbi gave was about seeing oneness in our relationships and recognizing the light in other people. And at the end of the service, right before the rabbi read the list of all of the people who in the congregation who had passed in that week, the people from many years ago and the people from that week of time, he said, listen, I want to let everybody know that there's a very special member of our community here, and his name is Gabby Bernstein. And I want to acknowledge that his daughter Gabrielle is here. She used to be the president of the Jewish youth group. Very proud. and her husband and her brother Max, and they're all here, and they're very loyal members of our community. And he said, I want to really acknowledge Edgar because every year Edgar comes to celebrate his parents' yahrzeit. Never misses a year. He shows up every year. He lets me know he's coming. He sits in the front of the service. He's very, very loyal to his parents. And so he said, I wanted to give something back to Edgar. And so I went into the files. The rabbi goes into the files, and he digs up my grandfather's membership card from 1952. The membership card that says Seymour Bernstein, 19 Nassau Road. And he pulls up this membership card. He's holding this membership card up in front of the audience, and I look over and I see my father, and he's bawling. He's in tears. He's so moved. And in that moment, my father felt one. He felt like a man. He felt connected to his community, and he felt honored for his commitment to his father. And I look over, and immediately something came over me. I pushed my stepmother aside, and I walk over. And I put my arm around my father, and I embrace him, and I hold him. And I connect to him in a way that I've never connected to him before. And I felt a sense of pride for him. Pride that he had been such a dedicated, devoted member of this spiritual community. Pride that he was so honoring of his elders, of his father and his mother. Felt very proud to be his daughter. And in that moment, 5 years of resentment dissolved. And there I was in the temple, crying my eyes out, holding my father, and all of it lifted. In that moment, forgiveness was bestowed upon me. I left the temple that night. I wrote my father an email, and I said, it's all over. We're good. And it is. It's gone. It's over. It's good. And so we don't know what will happen. We don't know how forgiveness will be blessed upon us. But we just have to stay willing to receive it. That receptive energy is what allows the natural accordance of the miracles to occur. That receptive energy clears the space. That receptive energy and that willingness to forgive opens up our psychic capacity to hear that direction that says, go to temple that night. Don't miss this. That receptive energy lets us say, I'm going to embrace this moment and I'm not going to avoid it. That willingness is all you need. People get so hung up about how do I forgive, and the simplicity of forgiveness is just to ask for the willingness to be in the presence of what it means to forgive. Ask for the willingness to be in the presence of what it means to forgive. And so dwelling in that energy of that willingness will dissolve the boundaries, it will clear the path, and it will show you where to go and what to do. So the prayer I offer you today, because my assumption is that each and every one of you have someone in your life that you've been carrying a resentment towards. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's yourself. Maybe it's your body. Here's a prayer I offer you. And if you really want to go big and surrender fully, get on your knees. I am willing to see this differently. I am willing to forgive. That mere willingness, I'm willing to see this differently, I'm willing to forgive, will set you in motion. It will set the wheels in motion. It will set you up for the next right action. It will open doors that you didn't even know were available to you. It will give you inspired ideas to pick up the phone when you never thought you could. And it will give you the power to show up for circumstances that are far beyond your wildest imagination. So just open your heart today, just with that moment of desire, that commitment for that deep desire for forgiveness. Because the thing is that we think that we want to hold that resentment because it's going to protect us, or we would rather be right. But my question for you guys is, would you rather be right or happy? I know what you want. You wouldn't have spent the whole weekend here, and you wouldn't have committed yourselves as dedicated Hay House students if you didn't want happiness, if you weren't ready to be free. Happiness is freedom. Joy is freedom. Joy is the catalyst for all that is good. Joy is the creator. Joy is the movement. And that is the next step in being in sync with the universe. The next step in being in sync with the universe is to lean towards joy, and you will be led. Leaning towards joy elevates your energy. It vibrates you at a different capacity. It moves a movement through you. Joy is contagious. The most sexy person in the room is the most joyful person in the room, right? The people that we lean towards are the people that are joyful. The people that you want to hire are the people that are joyful. I learned something great from my dear friend Robert Holden. Joy increases your chances for success. If you're ready to create more success in your life, make joy a priority. Make fun your priority. I started measuring my success based on how much fun I was having. And that really genuinely changed my entire life. As I started to show up for life and see the light in other people, be willing to forgive, leaning towards joy, having more fun, being playful, that's when I started to feel that interconnectedness more freely. So leaning towards joy, what does that mean for you? What is joyful for you? What are the things that you can do in your life that could be more joyful? Or more importantly, how can you show up for life with more joy? Just to be a little honest with you guys, I was backstage in the green room and I said to Patty, who's my editor here at Hay House, I was like, Patty, I don't really like my spot at the Hay House event. There's a book signing, everybody's coming in, it's like the end of the day, everybody's exhausted. I don't like my spot. You always put me in this spot. And then immediately I heard that little voice in my head that just said, have fun, Gabby, and it'll be awesome. Have fun, and maybe this will be the sweetest spot in the whole weekend. So catch yourself in those moments, because here's the deal. The ego goes into fear, into fear, into fear, into fear. That's where we lean. We go into fear because fear is our default. Fear is what we're taught. Fear, very, very unfortunately, is what we are seeing far too much of right now. And it is our joy and our capacity to cultivate that joy that not only creates freedom in our life, that not only creates a flow and a synchronicity in our life, and those moments where those angel wings start to show up, and that wild synchronicity starts to become our reality. But more importantly, that joy that we begin to dwell in is not just for us. It's not just so that we can attract that romantic partner. It's not just so that we can have that awesome abundance. It's not just so that we can have that fun in our life. It's so that we can bring forth an energy and a magnitude that begins to cultivate a new vibration on this planet that so deeply needs it now. What are we going to do with the circumstances of our times? What do we do in the wake of the attacks yesterday? We lean towards joy. We make joy our highest priority for our brothers and sisters all throughout the world because, to be honest with you, fear is winning. And it's people that wind up in rooms like this that have the power and the capacity and the presence and the commitment to elevate not only their own personal lives, but to elevate their communities, to elevate their families, and to elevate the world. This is a conversation that we have to be having today. It cannot just be about how I can get more, or how I can have more freedom, or how I can experience some groovy synchronicity. It has to be about how I can show up at my highest capacity so I can have a positive imprint on this world that needs me so much today. You see, I identify as a spiritual activist. I recognize and I acknowledge and I honor that my greatest source of power is the capacity that I have to bring forth that light energy. I recognize that my greatest source of power is to be in sync with the energy of the universe. And in that interconnectedness with the universe, I am given an energy, I'm given inspired ideas, I'm given the desire to spread loving messages through my Instagram, through my Twitter, through my Facebook. I'm given the energy to want to hug someone a little bit longer, to take an extra beat in a conversation, to gaze into my husband's eyes a little bit longer because that is what matters. And to be deeply grounded in that joy. When I get upset and I get down and I get hooked into the stories of what we're experiencing today, all I keep hearing is lean towards joy. Lean towards joy. And I want to remind you all that each and every one of you has that same capacity to be led, has the same support and love from the universe. Each and every one of you have this commitment and this intention that you can lock into that can give you that next right action. But I have a feeling that there might be some people in this audience that may struggle with something I see often when I speak to publics, to groups, and when I work with people privately, is this thing that's, well, the universe loves everybody else, but not me. Anybody feel that? Anybody feel that at times? You know, everybody else has that awesome hookup, but I don't have it? Anybody familiar with what I'm talking about? I have a client, Melissa. Melissa contacted me, and we were doing some private work together. And she said to me, you know, Gab, everybody's having all this great synchronicity and all this support and all this love from the universe, and all these people are getting so hooked up from the universe, and I'm not. You know, why does God not love me? And I started laughing. I was like, look, I'm not laughing at you, but I'm just laughing because this is the ego's tiny mad idea that you're separate from God, that you're separate from love. I started to explain to her that the universe loves all of us, that we are all children of God, that we all have that connection. We just forgot. A tiny mad idea, and we forgot. And so I said, listen, you know, why don't we do a little, I told her my story about the angel wing. I said, let's ask for your sign. Let's have some fun. Let's ask for your sign, Melissa. And I said, okay, well, what would your sign be from the universe? And she said, I just said, don't think, just tell me, what's your sign? She says, cash. It's like, okay, cash. So I said, you have 24 hours to get your cash. She's like, yeah, it's not going to work. The universe doesn't love me. I said, girl, get committed, okay? So I hook her back in. Let's get committed. So she's texting me throughout the day. Haven't seen my cash. No cash, Gabby. What's going on? I haven't seen my cash. And just, complaining. And I said, listen, say that prayer. I'm willing to receive my miracle. I'm willing to receive my sign. And just stay in the presence of the willingness, because you're looking in the direction of not finding the miracle is not helping you experience that connection to the universe. So let's open up to the desire to call it in. So she said, okay, I'll change my mind about it. I see her later the night that this was about to expire, probably 6 hours before this expires, because this is a 24-hour little cycle we were in. And I see her at a little party at my friend's juice bar downtown. And she walks up to me and she goes, it's 6 hours away and I still haven't found my cash. I was like, honey, chill out. You have 6 more hours. There's so much time. Relax. And so she's like, fine. And she walks away and she starts talking. She's in a little huddle with her girlfriends. And she's like, Gabby told me to look for a sign and I'm waiting for my cash and I haven't found it. And one of her girlfriends looks at her and she said, well, why don't you just look down right now? Maybe the cash is on the floor. She looks down. A freaking 20 is on the floor. She comes running up to me. I found my cash! I found my cash! But the moment in time, that moment in time was such a resurrection for her, because it reminded her that she is not alone, that she wasn't left off God's list, that she is loved, that she is supported, that the universe too has her back. And that in that experience of that support and that synchronicity, she could feel that connection again. And so when I'd spend time with her now, I see her just like walking through life feeling so connected to the sign, connected to the joy, connected to her commitment to being in sync with the universe. And I just want to emphasize this, because I know that there are people in this audience that in some way, shape, or form may be feeling that experience of being disconnected. And I just want to see a show of hands. Just let's get honest, because the key for healing our perceptions is to get honest. So in any way, shape, or form, maybe it's not that you don't feel like God loves you, but maybe you're just like, well, God loves me when it comes to my relationships, but God really doesn't love me when it comes to my finances. Like, what? Is there a story that you're telling yourself? Is there a story you're telling yourself? And so in that story, I just want you to get honest about that story. Take a look at that story. Get real with that story. And recognize how you might be looking for that ball to drop. How are you looking for more judgment in your life? How are you looking for the problems? Can you just take a moment to get honest with yourself and see how you may be looking in the direction of the problems? What would happen if we spent our days looking for the miracles? What would happen if we opened our hearts to receive those signs and trusted that they were coming and started to pay more attention to the miracle moments? I was recently in a situation where my husband and I were dealing with this negotiation with someone, and it was really frustrating us. And it was like day after day, we were just getting more and more annoyed with these people. They were not really following the rules. They weren't signing the contract. They were doing all the things that you really don't want your partners to do. And we were getting really frustrated with this relationship, and we just started to get into the dialogue of like, this sucks, this isn't fun, this is so frustrating, where's the contract, what's happening? And that was our daily dialogue. And so what was happening? The contract wasn't getting signed, there was more tension, there was more chaos. We were co-creating that experience with this chaotic moment in time. Finally, I looked at my husband and I said, what if we started looking for the miracles? What if we started just looking for the joy? And so in that moment, we just made a commitment to each other that we would start seeing the miracle moments throughout our day, choosing to perceive this experience with more of a miracle mindset, choosing to see more of a positive experience in our life, and really wanting to show up with that lens of love. And the moment that we started to look with that lens of love, the entire deal started to fall into place. The contract got signed, the venue got set up, the relationship started to get cleared, and by the end of the week, we were like in a really loving relationship with these people that only a week ago we were hating. And so seeing how just that simple shift in perception can totally reorganize your energy. It can bring you right back in, it can hook you right back into that truth of who you really are. And it can give you that beautiful, clear path to see again with the sight of the universe, to see with that spiritual sight. Let's talk about that for a moment. In what ways are you relying on your own strength? In what ways are you choosing to see with physical sight? How can I get? How can I control? How can I make something happen? How can I turn this thing on? How can I do? How can I create? How can I move? And so when we're in that story of trying to make and force and control, we're in our own strength. But what does it mean to you to be surrendered to a power greater than you? Do you know what that feels like to you? Does anyone have a body, physical sensation knowing of what it feels like to be in a surrendered state? Let's see some hands. All right, let's have an experience of it right now. Let's close this day with an experience of being in the energy of that interconnectedness. Let's all close our eyes for a moment. Take a moment to think about that area of your life where you are still relying on your own strength, where you're still holding, where you're still controlling, where you're still manipulating, where you're still in judgment, where you're still in attack, where you may be unforgiving. Honoring this moment right now, what is up for you? What is happening in your life? In what ways is that disconnect and that separation creating chaos? Together, we set the intention as a collective consciousness, a community of like-minded spiritual brothers and sisters. We set the intention to surrender our need to control this outcome, surrender our desire to be right, and open up to our willingness to be happy. Open up to our desire and our commitment and our conviction to lead and live from a place of authentic truth, to live and lead and dwell in a place of interconnectedness. We call on the guidance of the highest truth and compassion to enter into this space now. We ask for this connection to the universe to be bestowed upon us. We humbly surrender our fears to a power greater than ourselves. And we ask for that universal guidance to remember and remind us of what is true. I'd like you all to see yourselves lining up as if you're walking up onto this stage one by one. Not actually walking up on the stage. Envisioning yourselves one by one walking up on the stage, and see yourself standing on the edge of that stage. Walking to the center of the stage, standing in the center of this massive stage. Now it's your time. Here you are, standing in the center of the stage. And see your angel wings begin to expand, begin to move, begin to sway. See those wings begin to extend all the way off the stage onto the audience, holding the energy of this group in a divine golden huddle, an angelic hug. See yourself with those magnificent wings, holding the energy of the group. And feel the presence of that energy in this moment now. Take a deep breath in and feel that presence. And take a deep breath in knowing that these wings are yours, pulling your hands together, holding your hands in prayer. Feeling that interconnectedness, bringing that oneness right back in and feeling that divine connection to the energy that you have cultivated. These wings are yours. And you can choose to walk through life now with these gorgeous angel wings. See yourself walking out of this room today into your life, back into your offices, back into your homes. But now you're ushered by these gorgeous angel wings. You're ushered in the directions that you need to go. Your obstacles are becoming opportunities, detours in the right direction, because these wings are gently guiding you. Seeing yourself in this light with these wings, knowing now that you can cultivate this presence and you can cultivate this energy in your own experience on a day-to-day basis. Take a deep breath in and hold that feeling in your heart. And on the exhale, let it go. Take another deep breath in and feel the presence of those angel wings around you, holding you and protecting you. And let it go. And open your eyes to the room. Take that vision with you. As you walk through your life, you choose to release that judgment, dissolve the boundaries of that judgment by recognizing the other person is you, remembering that the disowned parts of your own shadow are what you dislike in others, remembering that the light that you see in others is a reflection of your light, choosing to let go of all that comparison and all that judgment and dwelling back into the truth. Allowing those angel wings to guide you and remind you that forgiveness is your pathway back to what is real, that forgiveness will clear the path, that forgiveness is available to you just by simply asking for it. Allow those wings to remind you that joy is your birthright, that your mission is to be the light, that your work is to walk through this life with an energy and a presence of light that you can bring with you wherever you go, particularly into the most difficult circumstances. I'll close with a gorgeous story of being the light. I have a very close friend who is walking through his life feeling very pissed off about his job. Anyone familiar with this? And he was pissed off about his job, and he was feeling really out of alignment with his purpose. And as he walked through his life feeling out of alignment with his purpose and disconnected from his job, he was constantly, just for 10 years actually, kind of complaining to me over and over and over. I am so miserable with this job. I'm so out of alignment. I'm so unhappy. This is not working. And I continued to listen to the same story over and over and over again. And meanwhile, he's a very creative person. He's into fashion, he's into art, he's into music, he plays in a band, and he's going to this job at the bank every day with his suit on, all suited up, and just feeling completely out of alignment with his purpose. And so I kept saying to him, listen, your purpose is not this job. I understand that, but we got to find a miracle here, man, okay? We got to find a miracle. So I started to pray for him very deeply. And one afternoon we were together, and I looked at him and I said, listen, I have a message for you. Are you ready? And he said, yeah, I'm ready for your message. I said, listen, your purpose is not to be the best banker. Your purpose is not to do the greatest spreadsheets or make the most money in the bank, but your purpose is actually to be the light. Your purpose is to show up to this job every single day and bring forth an energy of presence, bring forth an energy of light, bring a positive attitude into an environment that's very angry and upset, not a positive place to be. I said your purpose is to show up and bring your spiritual tools and all the principles that you practice in your day-to-day life into this office where everyone's so miserable. And for whatever reason, that day, he was really willing to hear me. He's like, okay, I'm going to be the light. I'll go. So he shows up at his office, and he walks in that day, and he's wearing his little suit, and he's standing at the door, and he's looking at everybody in the office, and he says to himself, I am the light. And he starts to show up, bringing more positivity, bringing more joy, bringing less judgment, bringing more forgiveness, bringing more joy, and lots of light. Things start to work out. His boss starts to bring him in on new meetings. People want to hang out with him. He's making new friends in the office. And I call him up and I say, listen, what's going on, man? How is it going? And he says, just being the light. So I say to him, I'm like, listen, this is working for you. I'm happy to see that you're having such a joyful experience. This is working for you. He said, yeah, this is fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. And he starts to feel a sense of connection. Even though he still feels so disconnected from the job and he doesn't like the work, he's finally feeling connected because he's living in his purpose, which is to be the light. And in the experience of being in his purpose, he spends a year in this light worker position at the job. Showing up every day, being the light worker, giving people good advice, bringing positive energy into the negative environment, making sure people like him and having a good time, and bringing his blessing, which is his energy and his presence. Time goes on. It's about a year after his experience of practicing being in the light, and it comes to a place where he's ready to leave the job. And he goes to his boss and he says, listen, you know what? This has been incredible. I'm so grateful for all that I've learned and all that you've given me. And the past 10 years in this group has taught me so much, and I've had such a great privilege of learning so much about myself, but it's time for me to move on. And that was 6 months ago. He left his job. He's living in the light. He's my husband and my new business partner. Now, he could have left a year ago. He could have easily left a year ago, and he could have stepped out and been like, let's just start this and let's do this. But I knew intuitively, he had more work to do. It wasn't that he could just leave because it was fine to leave. He had work to do. He had a lesson to learn. He had an experience that was probably one of the most magnificent transformational experiences of his life, which was the experience of knowing what it means to really be the light, even when your circumstances are not fun. And so I ask you all today, what is it within you that you can start to activate? What is it within you that you can start to rev up? In what ways can you start to bring the light into the darker corners of your life? In what ways can you start to release that judgment by seeing the other person as you? In what ways can you start to practice forgiveness just with the mere prayer of willingness? In what ways can you start to infuse more joy? In what ways can you walk through life blessing people by seeing the light in them? When you start to live in this way, life gets really, really groovy. And you start to experience a sense of knowing, and a sense of certainty, and a sense of safety no matter what. And that safety and that freedom and that certainty, that is priceless. That is everything. That is what we come here for. That is why you are in this room today. You are in this room today because you want to be free, because you want to feel safety and certainty and freedom, no matter what. No matter what. You want to know how to handle the situations that baffle you. You want to intuitively know how to find that access to your power when you feel powerless. We all have the capacity to live in that experience. We all have the capacity to live in sync with the cosmos, in sync with the universe. It is a moment-to-moment gig. It is a daily practice. It is a mental reconditioning. It is a journey of unlearning and remembering. It is worth every single step of the way. I bow to all of you for being in these seats today because that is your commitment to showing up for your light. I honor you for that. So a year ago, I go back to Toronto. I give another talk. And at the end of the talk, I'm doing my book signing, and this little girl starts running up to me. Oh my God, Gabby, how are you? It's so good to see you, Gabby. I'm so excited that you're here. Last year, when you were here, I left you a present. It was an angel wing that said, believe. It moves me. It moves me. I'm in awe of the magnificence that is within us and around us. And I'm deeply committed to activating it in my life every single day and doing whatever I can to remind you to activate it in your life too. God bless you all. Thank you.